Welcome to the Beyond Sugar Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Dame, holistic nutrition coach and speaker. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode here on the Beyond Sugar Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Dame, and I'm being joined today by a very exciting guest. Keira is here joining us. How are you doing today, Keira?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good. We were just having such a blast chatting before I hit record that we almost forgot to hit record. And we're like, we need to hit record and have these conversations. So hopefully some of that will come up where we're just diving into geeking out about somatic work and nervous system and psychedelics and all the deep healing that is here unfolding for all of us as an opportunity. And I'm so excited to have you here, Keira, because this topic around what's actually going on inside our bodies coming out in our skin, we're having a skin-related conversation today and so much more, is something we haven't talked about yet on the podcast. So I'm so excited to have you here. And I think a great place to start, where I love to start with all new guests, is for you to share your story. I know that you have a journey through getting into the work that you're doing today. So will you share that with our audience? What inspired you to really get into this, especially this niche of skin health?
Yeah, such a great, I'll try and do my best to give the shortest version of this story, because I thought I went to dermatology because I just couldn't make a decision. I loved medicine, I loved peds, I loved histology, I loved surgery, all the things, and dermatology is an opportunity where you can do it all, right? It's like a kid in a candy store. But what I realized when my own health started falling apart about over a decade ago, I realized that I went into dermatology because I really never felt comfortable in my skin. And, as a kid, I was made fun of for the 2 birthmarks, one on each side of my face. And as a young kid, I learned at a very young age when kids call me coffee stain face, which is hilarious, by the way, because they actually are cafe au lait spots. So translationally, they are coffee stains. So kids were mean, but they were smart. But I learned at a really young age that our skin could be a source of shame and embarrassment and humiliation. And I figured out ways at a very young age to mask that with suntan, sunburn, all the things. I'm a brunette, but my dad's a redhead, so I burn really easily. Fast forward, lots of sun damage, lots of changing moles, ultimately having to diagnose myself with the very skin cancer that I had become an expert in diagnosing as an oncodermatologist. Melanoma. And that kind of was my wake up call that all the things that I thought I was doing right, were actually not right for me. The people pleasing, the overworking, the over-exercising, all the things to check all the boxes of being a woman in our society. Mm-hmm. And it really led me down this path of, kind of integrative functional medicine approach, mindfulness, somatics. What does it feel like to live in this skin of ours? And how is that perception and that experience being now reflected on the outside? Your skin is a window to your nervous system. So I realize I love the science and I can geek out on it all day long. And I became a dermatopathologist because I loved putting the pieces together of what skin looks like underneath the microscope, what is showing up on the surface, and being able to tell the skin story. But I realized there's a much more profound story that we're telling with what shows up on our skin. And that is who we are, the story that we're telling ourselves about our experience living in the skin of ours. So that's kind of how I wound up here.
Yeah. Wow. I know that there's so much more to that story and there's just not time for it, right? And yeah, that's really, I bet everybody listening, I bet you didn't see that going there, right? Because when we start to have this conversation about skin, like, okay, what creams should I use? What should I put on my face, right? And we spend our whole lives. I mean, I've never been one of those types of women that love to wear a lot of makeup, and I'm a very down to earth. I'm impressed that I'm wearing a little bit of mascara today. But that is really our culture. It's just almost hiding ourselves, right? Or be exactly like you said, being ashamed of, the complexion of our skin or spots on our skin, or especially when it comes to the face, and what we're putting out in the world, right? And kind of having this perception of it. So I'm fascinated by and really love this approach of getting underneath the skin, right? And not just about what creams to put on to look 30 when you're 90, right? Like, and how to protect it and all those pieces. So what would you say, when people, anybody listening to this who maybe is struggling with some skin diseases or blemishes or issues of the skin, either on the face or other places, what do you see? You've kind of mentioned some of them as like the real root causes of that manifestation of what's coming out on the skin. Is it physical? Is it psychological? Is it, what are all the things that are really lying under the surface that are causing, these skin abnormalities or diseases?
It is never just one thing. It is all the things. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. It's the whole of who we are that contributes. And I would offer that anyone struggling with acne, eczema, psoriasis, some of the big ones, alopecia, aging, as an aging woman, right? We're supposed to be anti-aging, and thankfully the language around that is changing, but why would we want to be anti anything about ourselves? The messages and the messaging that we've received as those of us socialized as women in the society is just BS and awful and so damaging. But I would say that yes, we have been socialized to believe that what shows up on your skin is something to be fixed. It is a flaw. There's something wrong with you. You got to cover it up. I mean, the makeup is called cover up, right? It is not something that has gone wrong. I would invite people to consider that what is showing up on their skin is an invitation to understand what need you might have right now. What is going on with you? Dark circles under your eyes. Okay. Have you been sleeping? We know that beauty sleep is no joke. Like, it is real, right? Sleep is the time that you rejuvenate, you rest, you repair. It's when melatonin increases and cortisol decreases. And melatonin is one of the most potent antioxidants that our body produces. It is responsible for hair follicle health and hair growth and DNA repair. So sleep is vitally important. Are those dark circles indicating that, you need to pay a little more attention to your sleep hygiene? Or perhaps is it a food sensitivity or allergy? I mean, there's so many directions that you can go, but I would offer that what is showing up on your skin is an invitation to do what one of my mentors called your me search, right? Like, what's happening in your life right now to get to know yourself better and just know that nothing has gone wrong. Your body's doing exactly what it thinks it needs to be doing to keep you safe, to keep you alive. And that is just manifesting itself on the surface.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so powerful. I wholeheartedly agree. I'm thinking of the exact parallels of everything that I talk about and work with my clients on our habits, right? And our patterns with food, our binging, our addictive behavior, right? Just being an external manifestation of whatever the heck is going on inside, right? And it's the same with the skin. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I know for me, it was only recently, I'd say in the last decade, that people started understanding that, it used to be, well, you have, blemishes on your skin or acne, it must be what you're putting on your skin, right? Versus what's coming from the inside out, right? And now understanding that there's the hormonal aspect, for things like acne and even deeper layers of somatic stuff.
Exactly. And I would name that sometimes it is still an outside-in job. There's irritant contact dermatitis, allergic contact dermatitis. Are we exfoliating too much? The 21-step skincare routine that you think that you need to buy, and then you're overdoing it. Absolutely. It could be an outside-in challenge. It could be an inside out, and the inside out could be gut dysbiosis. It could be, toxic overload, just our body not being able to process and assimilate. It could be that we are trying to buffer and numb out the discomfort that we don't want to feel, especially with regards to eating and those patterns of behavior. I know for myself, having struggled, I was more of the restrictor, right? I wanted to control what I could control, and that was what went into my body because I thought I had to measure up to be what society wanted me to be, a certain size, because I wasn't the blonde hair, blue-eyed, stereotypical, it girl. I was the short, frizzy hair, so I had to figure out how to manipulate my physicality, and that sucks. Mm-hmm. And yet I have such compassion for that younger version of myself because she was just doing what she thought she needed to do to feel loved, to belong. And that, and so thankfully, awareness leads to transformation and change, and also compassion. But it's like, again, the things that show up in our lives, whether it's the habits that we have, what's visibly showing up, it's information and an invitation to maybe look at, is this still working for me?
Yeah. Yeah. And isn't that just the missing link? I see the exact parallels with the food stuff that I work on, right? It's really understanding and pausing to ask that question, right? Like, what is my body trying to tell me right now? Mm-hmm. Right? What is it that I need sleep, right? Is it something else going on?
What am I really hungry for? Yeah.
What am I really craving?
What am I really craving? Like, yeah, I'm sorry. Like that cookie and that chocolate there are times when that is exactly what I'm craving, and that is hitting the spot. But oftentimes, right, it's not that. It's like, I don't want to feel the discomfort I'm feeling right now. Or I just want to feel accepted. I just want to feel love. And I think this is the way I can show it, because food is a reward. Mm-hmm. Food is food can be love, and food can also be pain.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we get stuck in a cycle, right?
Totally.
Where we're eating the junk food or not nourishing ourselves, and then we're gaining weight, our skin is getting worse, and then we feel worse about ourselves, so we eat more of the junk because we're feeling guilty and ashamed and icky in our body, and it becomes this cycle. I know I've been in that cycle before, so anyone listening who's in that, just absolutely no judgment. I mean,
you're not alone.
Part of the journey. Yeah. You're definitely not alone. But it is interesting just to see that link and bring awareness and shine light on that cycle.
And again, that's where your skin comes into play, right? Because when we're in that cycle of not nourishing our bodies in the way that it needs to be nourished, it is going to show up in your skin. It may be delayed, yeah? But if you're noticing inflammation or puffiness, or, you're eating things that are shifting your gut microbiome, right? Things that you may, you're not getting enough fiber, not enough fat, not enough protein, and maybe you're experiencing hair thinning, hair loss, or with metabolic issues. I mean, acanthosis nigricans, where there's thickening and darkening of the skin in the skin folds. Those are telltale signs that your body is not functioning in its most optimal way. So the skin gives you clues, just like the messages from your body as well. But your skin is this beautiful organ that sometimes it whispers. That's why I named my book The Skin Whispers. Sometimes the messages it gives you are subtle whispers. Maybe you're getting a few more blemishes, or a few more moles are popping up here and there. But sometimes your skin is literally shouting at you, right? It is no joke, like alopecia areata, or, like your massive, like, breakouts, and you're really struggling. And it doesn't always have to be that extreme, but it's a matter of, are you willing to heed the call? Are you willing to listen and have, and from a place of, like you said, non-judgment, just get curious, from a place of curiosity. Like, what is this? Yeah. What is this here to offer me?
Yeah, I love that. I also love, I was checking out your Instagram and love what you're sharing over there. And I saw a quote that really resonated with me because, again, very paralleled with what I share around sugar addiction. But you said that the quality of your complexion is a direct correlation to the state of your nervous system. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit more about that. I know we've kind of been talking, around about that, about what's going on the inside, but more specifically, what does our nervous system actually have to do with our skin, right? And what's coming out on the outside? How does that actually work? What's the link there?
It is an embryologic link. So your brain and your skin are derived from the same embryologic layer, the ectoderm. So there is a very intimate connection between the brain and the skin. There is a bidirectional communication all the time. So your brain sends signals, your skin has receptors, it receives them. So when we talk about especially the stress and the stress response, so top down, we have the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis that's activated from stressors, real or perceived, right? Our whole exposome, like everything in our environment that can trigger our stress response. It stimulates a cascade of stress hormones, inflammatory signals that reach your skin, yeah? But what most people don't appreciate is that your skin actually has its own HPA axis. So your skin is actually a target and a source of the stress response. So think about it from this perspective, right? I'm speaking to you right now and we're on, camera and what have you. And I didn't think I was nervous, but I'm a little bit nervous. My pits are a little sweaty. Yeah. Or like when you speak in front of a group, have you ever noticed that you get a little flushed? Your chest gets a little flushed, or maybe your cheeks get a little rosy, or palms get a little sweaty. That is your brain and your skin communicating. It's happening all the time. It's happening all the time. So there's this very intricate connection.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those who aren't familiar, right, this nervous system being our safety system.
Exactly.
Right? That's
always
really
searching
fascinating.
For danger. Yeah, it is. And so when we talk about, your skin, obviously, it is a window and a reflection of everything happening beneath the surface. And because of that intimate link between the brain and the skin, your window can really be seen as, your skin can really be seen as a window to your nervous system. So when we talk about, your autonomic nervous system, your automatic nervous system, right? There's your central nervous system, your brain, your spinal cord, and then there's your autonomic nervous system, sympathetic, parasympathetic response. That when you are, as you said, it's kind of like this personal safety surveillance system, right? And it's always searching for clues of danger, and it's going to be activated when it feels like it's under threat or duress. It's going to trigger those stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline and inflammatory signaling. Cortisol, we were talking about acne earlier. Cortisol directly stimulates your oil glands. It has a significant role in skin barrier function, making it more vulnerable. So it kind of breaks it down. Aging. Collagen, cortisol is like the enemy of collagen. So cortisol breaks collagen down and prevents its repair. So it contributes to fine lines, wrinkling, preventing wound healing. So stress in and of itself isn't a bad thing. But when we have ongoing stress, when we're always kind of living outside of what we call our window of capacity, our stress response is always chronically activated. And so you have all these hormones that are flooding your body and creating havoc. And that is what the result of that is. You're seeing it on your skin in many different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And then for most of you listening, probably also seeing that in your patterns with food, right?
Yes.
Reaching for sugar, trying to cope with the stress, right? Which just makes it worse. It's, again, that sort of double-edged sword. Yeah, it's fascinating. Okay, I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about this sign behind you. People might not be able to read it, but I'm really fascinated because I love this. You talk a lot about going skinny dipping when it comes to your skin health as well as your inner healing journey. What does that mean? Obviously, when we think of skinny dipping, we think we're going swimming, right? We're not wearing our clothes and we're going for it, which is amazing probably for your skin as well. But what do you mean when you talk about that in terms of skin health?
Yeah, it's so funny. And the wallpaper behind me is like this naked wallpaper. And it was the first time that my wallpaper installer, she actually called her mom. She's like, oh my God, I just had to install a nudie wallpaper. I've never done that before. I was like, all right. I'm excited to be your first.
I love it.
So, as dermatologists, right, we always had to get people naked in order to look at their skin and be able to teach people what to look for. As I mentioned, I was an oncodermatologist. So skin cancer is the most prevalent cancer in the United States, actually in Canada as well. And so, it's something that is preventable for the most part. So you need to know how to look for the signs and symptoms of it, right? So getting people physically naked was something that I always had to do in my professional life. But what I realized, especially when my own health fell apart, is that we have to be open and willing to get naked mentally, emotionally, spiritually to see what is here for us, what is showing up in our life that might be holding us back from experiencing the greatest joy. Like what is creating our suffering, and what might we need to shed and exfoliate, what layers might need to fall away in order to reveal what's here for our highest self. So it's a process that I actually take people through to really help them increase their awareness of the layers that are here, and what is serving them and what may no longer be serving them, so they can move into the phase, kind of shed those layers to reveal what actually will serve them in the best way.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. I love that, right? Because we do have layers. We've got the masks, the layers of the onion I always talk about, right? That especially, yeah, and what I hear you saying in that is really getting raw and vulnerable, right? With yourself, maybe with a trusted, safe person, and really getting into those layers of what's really going on under the surface.
Totally.
Does part of that process in that journey that you take clients through eventually end up, because I know a lot of women are going to be terrified as soon as I say this, but naked in front of the mirror, like actually physically naked and observing your full body and noticing, right? Obviously we have skin everywhere, not just our face, right? And really actually learning to map that out and maybe learning how to, like you said, love the skin that you're in, which is, I know, a journey that I'm still working on. And I know every one of my listeners, if you're a woman, struggles with this. So is that part of the journey as well? And do you notice a lot of people absolutely terrified to do that?
Yeah. And by the way, I'm still on that journey too. We teach best what we need to learn the most. That is exactly why I do this work. And it's never done, right? There's always another layer there. And I will name, absolutely. So that oncoderm part of me will never leave. Like, I really want to protect people's health and well-being from the outside in as well as the inside out. So teaching people what to look for. I always tell people to party in their birthday suit on the date of their birthday every single month, because you are the one, just like a breast cancer exam, right? A breast exam, like you are going to be, your body better than anybody else. You are going to be able to notice when things are growing, changing, right? Or you have a uninvited guest that's standing out from your crowd. So part of the invitation is maybe just from a kind of clinical standpoint, like getting to know your skin, getting to know the skin that you're in. So when something's changing, you'll know when your skin is whispering or when it's shouting. And so it can be from a very neutral standpoint, like I have a body, I have skin, like this is an arm, this is what is on my skin. I think it's it can be a very hard leap for many of us to be like, I fucking hate my wrinkles or my cellulite or my stretch marks, to I love myself. It's like, okay, that's not realistic. That's going to be really hard for a lot of us. So we take little baby steps. So part of the journey is getting to know the skin you're in. And sometimes we begin from a place of, this is what's here. This is, getting to know your skin you're in from a health standpoint, from a health safety standpoint. And then we can more get into, oftentimes it's an invitation of like the function, starting with the function and form. And it's like, these like women, right? Let's just look at eyelashes, for instance. A lot of women get eyelash extensions. And getting to know, like, what is your reason for that? What is your why, right? Because a lot of this stuff is really expensive and you may or may not get the return on the investment you're looking for. But like our eyelashes, for instance, I may not have the length or the curl that I want, but these eyelashes protect my eyes so that I can see the sunrise and the sunsets and my kids' smiles. Like, if I can find a way, like the positive, even if I don't love everything about it, it's a both and. So that's kind of the way that we approach like all aspects of our skin health, and that skinny dipping process for those of us who aren't like able to just say, I accept all of me, right? It's okay that you're not ready to accept, and you may not accept all the things, but is there a little bit more of you that is open to the possibility that you can love yourself a little bit more than you don't?
Yeah. That's really beautiful. I love the way that you said that. And yeah, I think that's a really beautiful message, as well as even starting out for those of you who are absolutely terrified to look at your naked body, right? Is to kind of come at it with a clinical lens, being like, I'm just here to investigate the spots and to look at it, right? And not get all caught up in like the judgment piece, right? And kind of leave that aside and just kind of come in, put your scientist glasses on and be aware. And that's such a good reminder. I do not do that. I have no problem walking around naked and being at home in my birthday suit, which is so great. But actually taking the time to map it out, right? And pay attention, because if we don't, like, how will I know if there's a new mole, right? And a new something popping up. So that's a really good point. And I need to get better at that. So I appreciate the reminder.
Right. I mean, think about it. We go to the dentist, we go to the eye doctor, we go to our gynecologist and what have you. I mean, checking out your skin, it needs to be done on a more regular basis, ideally once a month, because things do pop up, things do change. And your skin is such an amazing resource. It's always available. It's always showing itself. Like, you'll be able to act pretty quickly if something, needs your attention. And that's not to say I don't want anyone to, like panic, like every little blemish, everything is a sign or symptom. No, it's things that are kind of ongoing, and things can happen, right? So it's just an invitation, again, just an invitation to do your quote unquote me search, to get to know yourself better.
Yeah, I love that word. I'm going to use
me
that.
too.
I'm going to steal that. That's such a good word.
So
much more me search.
Exactly.
So what happens, what do you notice, right, with your clients and the people that you work with when they embrace the skinny dipping process? What shifts do you notice in your clients' like lives, also the skin? What does that process actually look like that people can sort of look forward to as they navigate that, getting raw and vulnerable and peeling the layers off?
Yeah. And I mean, listen, this is not, we don't like jump in the pool right away and strip it away. Like, it is at the pace that feels right for you, meeting you where you're at, right? And I think that's really important. And the biggest, shifts that happen are, I have one client in particular in mind. She came to me because she thought she needed the creams. And, she was in her late 50s and wanted to know what should she use to maintain her youthful appearance. She wanted to start dating again and was waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning to do her workouts because she wanted to whittle her waist so that she could look good, to get on the dating site and all the things. And the biggest shift was understanding her why for that, and coming at herself from a place of compassion and understanding that she was allowed to have her feelings, to feel the feelings, that, that she was using the exercise as a way to work. She thought if she was working them out, right? Exercise is great, but not when we're using it against ourselves. So the biggest shift was she started to give up those 2 to 3 in the morning workouts and find ways to move her body in a way that felt really good, improve her sleep, acknowledge that she was enough just as she was, which was incredible. And she did wind up putting herself on the app and getting some dates and being able to have, this was the best part, discernment. She wasn't taking anyone, all comers. She was like, nope, you're not, nope, not for me, not for me. I get to decide. And through that process, number one, of sleeping more, owning her own worth, her skin did start to glow a little bit more. Did it get, magically make the wrinkles go away? No, but she felt more and more comfortable in her skin. So her perception of her appearance started to shift. Yeah. And that's amazing. There are, listen, we are aging. I've got my wrinkles. I already have the stretch marks. I've got the cellulite. I suppose I could do all sorts of procedures to try and minimize those, but I'm still not going to look like I did when I was 20. So I can decide on purpose that I'm going to find a way to love where I am at this stage of life, or at least be accepting of it, allow for it, and enjoy my life, or I can reject myself, right? And be miserable.
Yeah. And fight against yourself, right? Like, it is this, and I have a lot of these conversations with my clients too, right? It's really getting deep into our identity even, right? Because like, how much mental energy and time are we wasting, especially as women, with all this crap? All of this, like, trying to look a certain way, hair, eyelash extensions, creams, like surgeries, like all the stuff that we put ourselves through to look young, right? And we end up looking fake, with too much Botox or too much of all this stuff, and really just never fully accepting ourselves, right? And unfortunately, we live in a society that supports that, right? That says we have to look a certain way, or you're not accepted, you're not lovable, you're not worthy. And here we are, and what you're doing and what I'm doing as well is, really preaching and reminding everybody that you're, just perfect as you are.
Yeah.
And how wonderful would it be if we lived in a culture that actually embraced aging? This is something too that we learn from like indigenous cultures or many current cultures around the world that actually put grandma on a pedestal. Like grandma is like worshipped. And aging is actually like a gift and a reward of like this wisdom keeper, right? They're really like revered as an icon in certain societies, and we don't have that here. We tuck our older generation, we throw them in homes, we leave them alone, we kick them out of society. Right? There's just so much that's backwards, and then not actually embracing that aging process, right? Which is going to happen to all of us. So do you want to fight that the rest of your life? You think that's naturally happening, right? And waste your time and energy just constantly fighting against yourself, trying to resist the wrinkles that are coming, the gray hair that's coming, right? The sagging breasts that are coming, right? It seems to me, it just seems so backwards, and no judgment for anyone who's stuck in that, of course, but it's just some food for thought. What really matters, right? Mm-hmm. And noticing, like you said, the why, right? Why are we doing all of these things? Is it because we feel like we have to fill some sort of shoes or look a certain way to feel worthy or to be respected at work or to keep our partner happy? And then starting to get honest about that can be really hard, right? It can be really hard to face some of those truths if you're in those cycles.
Absolutely. And I also want to name that there is no judgment if you choose to invest in those things. I would be a hypocrite if I said, I don't use products, or I haven't gotten Botox, or I've got gray right now. This afternoon, I'm going to get my hair done, like full on. But I know I'm acknowledging where I still struggle with things, and or part of it is like, I love where I am. Like I want to look the best that I can, feel the best that I can. And for me, like, that's coloring my hair right now, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so I'm not here to shame anyone or say like Botox is bad or procedures are bad. I just want people to do a little me search and get to know, like, what is your why? Like you said, Danny, like if you're doing this because you think that's how you'll get the relationship or you'll get further ahead in your career or you'll have some satisfaction, unfortunately, that's not how that works, right? It's kind of like, I feel great. I know I'm capable. I want my outside to match how I feel inside. Damn, that's money well spent. Money, that's a return on investment that'll pay huge dividends. But if you're looking at it as like, if I do this, then I will feel that. Unfortunately, that usually doesn't work. And if it does, it's very short-lived. It's not sustainable.
Right.
So I just want people to be really intentional about where they're investing their time and their resources, because again, you can maybe getting a facelift will last longer, but like the fillers and the Botox and they're temporary measures and they are expensive, and they can be amazing results. But know your why first, so that you feel really good about the process, and because there is downtime and it doesn't always turn out the way like. You can't guarantee results, and if it doesn't get the results that you wanted and it didn't accomplish, like, well, now I'm not in a loving relationship. Like, we just got to figure out, right? We got to peel back the layers there to really look at what's happening and how to get you exactly what you desire.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because that's really important. Obviously, for me, neither, no judgment. I actually was thinking about getting eyelash extensions again. I've done them once before, and I loved it. It was for me, and it was that why. Like, it wasn't for someone else. It wasn't it was, there was no motive for someone else. It was just, I want to see what this looks like and try this on for me. And
totally, it's so fun. I've had my sorry to cut you off.
No, that's okay. Yeah, it can be really fun, right? And I think that's just an important distinction, right? To not judge any of this, but just to be clear, are you doing it for you as an act of self-love, or are you doing it for someone else, or right, to get something? The word that comes up for me is expectations, right? Are you expecting, someone else to treat you a different way, or are you expecting yourself to feel more worthy? Right? Like, are there some expectations there that are based off of maybe an unhealthy perception of needing to look a certain way in order to be of value to society, right? And we all have that pattern in some way or another, and it can be a really tricky one to unravel. But yeah, I I think that's really, really important. Okay, I have a controversial question I want to ask you. This just came up. I was not planning this, and we're talking about it. Obviously, we're talking about skin cancer and your journey through that. It's funny because this feels like it shouldn't be a controversial topic, but it seems like it is nowadays when we talk about sunscreen. What are your thoughts on sunscreen? We've got I haven't done a lot of research on this myself. I just know my intuition, but coming from someone obviously who understands the skin a lot better than I do, what are your thoughts on this whole, and I don't know if you've seen the debate that's going on out there around like the chemicals and toxins and blocking vitamin D in our skin versus preventing burns and skin cancer, right? Which is obviously important as well.
Yeah, totally. Big topic. And there are definitely lots of important factors that go into making a decision. Here's my perspective from a professional standpoint. Skin cancer is the most prevalent cancer in the United States and in Canada. There are more new cases of skin cancer than all other cancers combined. In the U.S., it's an $8 billion problem. Now, granted, that isn't as much as cardiac issues or diabetes, but it's a significant cost. And because it's on the skin and it's so visible, having skin cancer surgery and the scars and the worry and the fear, there's that. Sunscreen is really, when we look at it, it is a protection for UVB rays, the burning rays, and UVA rays, the aging rays that penetrate your window glass that don't change throughout the year. And they penetrate deeper into the dermis. When you see an SPF of 30 or 50, that is really addressing the UVB protection. So in order to know if you're getting protection from UVA and UVB, you need to look for a broad spectrum coverage. Now, the research that has been done is the vast majority of people only use like a quarter to maybe 50% of the recommended amount. So for your body, it's an ounce, like a shot glass worth of sunscreen that you're supposed to apply to your body, kind of a dollop for your face. Most people are not using that much. So you are not getting the full coverage anyway. So even if you were to use SPF 100, it blocks out 99% of UVB rays. But here's the thing, no one uses it the way that it's supposed to. So you're still getting some sun exposure. Even if you wear sunscreen, you are still able to generate vitamin D to a certain degree. Now, there's also latitude and longitude where you and I live.
Right.
We are also in a place where we probably aren't getting enough. Even if we were not wearing sunscreen, we still may not be getting enough exposure of UVB rays for our skin to generate the amount of vitamin D that has now been decided that it's optimally supportive for our mental health, for our bone health, for all the other things. So there is some interesting research that came out about like sunscreen doping and like the ingredients that they're using that actually can decrease the amount of coverage that you're actually getting. So for those people who are like, I'm worried about my exposure, you're actually potentially getting some more exposure than you thought you were anyway. And there is some research of looking at creating sunscreens that have vitamin D filters, right? So can we offer protection while still creating the way for our bodies to get what it needs in order to create the vitamin D? It is very controversial. There is no perfect answer, but we do know that skin cancer is no joke. And given the sedentary kind of indoor lifestyles in terms of this idea of like UV hardening and being outdoors and being able to kind of create a base and some protection, more melanin pigment and protection in your skin, we're just not living those types of lifestyles. We are sicker than ever, which means our immune systems are suppressed to be able to turn on or off the triggers for skin cancer formation. So whatever protection you can get, I always say it's an inside out job. Sleep, how you nourish your body with food and with self-care, moving your body that doesn't overtax your system. It's kind of like Goldilocks. You don't want to over-exercise, you don't want to under-exercise, but you need enough to be, metabolically healthy and such. And then there's the outside stuff where you're wearing a broad brim hat, sunglasses, sun protective clothing, seeking shade, and then there's sunscreen on the parts that that are still exposed. So it's a multifaceted approach. I think that sunscreen is a great tool. It's not perfect. I personally only use the mineral-based sunscreens, zinc oxide, titanium oxide. I know that there's been controversy about that, but when you look at all the studies, those are at least, and even the FDA has agreed, they're, generally recognized as safe and effective. So the whole thing about the chemical sunscreens, the avobenzones, the oxybenzones, potentially messing with the coral reefs, but also avobenzone is like the biggest culprit for irritant contact dermatitis. Like my family in general, we can't use it because it makes us break out in this horrible rash. So, and zinc oxide, I mean, I'm on my soapbox now, but like zinc oxide, we use it on babies. This is diaper cream, yeah? And so it's essentially, we use it on our babies at less than 6 months old, but somehow sunscreen shouldn't be used below 6 months. But here's the thing, like we use it all the time. And from a marketing standpoint, you can use zinc oxide based sun protective products on your littles through your seniors, right? You don't have to buy multiple products. It's just marketing baby sunscreen versus it. So I always say like zinc oxide is the one I always go to. And then you have to decide what feels most aligned for you. But the research is there that, we know that skin cancer is a significant issue. Sunscreen can offer protection. Vast majority don't use enough. So you're still going to get some exposure to generate that vitamin D. And most of us are living in environments where we're not getting enough latitude, longitude in like our geographic location to get what we need anyway. So I will step off my box now.
Yeah, and then less likely to burn as well, right?
Yes.
Where we are, and obviously, thank you for sharing your pieces on it. It's something that I'm really fascinated about, and like full disclosure, have not done research on either end. Really just on my own understanding of chemicals. Really wanting to minimize putting chemicals in my body, right? What we put on our skin goes into our bloodstream, and also making sure that I'm not blocking myself from getting all the vitamin D. But I'm curious, one of my curiosities as you were talking there is, right, understanding, like, even as we're talking about cancer, right, the big scary C word. We actually just had the guest on the show, Dr. Nasha Winters, who was deep diving into really the root causes of cancer, right? And I'm curious your thoughts on this, because I believe that, like, skin cancer is not necessarily the outside in fear that everyone has preached for decades, and is what about the actual development of cancer from the inside out, right? Knowing that if our mitochondria are not operating, properly, our metabolism's out of whack, and we've got all like our metabolic health is totally a mess, right? This is a breeding ground for cancer in any form in the body. So this like inner world that's going on, being maybe a bigger player than getting a sunburn, right? Or maybe a bigger player. And I would be, I'm really curious, just taking a step back too, about like why this is becoming so much more of an issue, right? Same with diabetes and cancer and heart disease. And like, why we don't have more sun than we used to, right? We actually even have like more protection than we used to from an outside, more sunscreens, more people seeking shade or wearing long clothes or hats than we did before. Yet skin cancer is getting worse. So that to me, just like intuitively, is there's something going on inside with our absolutely toxic and horrible food industry, right? And the pharmaceutical industry, and these things that are wreaking havoc on our cells and our metabolic function, and actually opening the gateway to cancer being developed from these areas. So I don't know, your thoughts on that? That was just a curiosity I have. Is like, that's where my mind goes. I'm like, nah, like something doesn't match up here with why is skin cancer getting worse when we have more protection than we ever have from the outside?
Totally.
Right? And what's actually going on inside for us that's cultivating that cancer, right? And creating a breeding ground for it.
Big fan of Dr. Winters, by the way. So, it goes back to that concept of the exposome, everything in our environment that can affect our overall health and well-being. So it is, I use a framework called our senses. It's relationship, it's stress, it's sleep, our environment, and it's not just our physical environment. It's our visual environment, everything that we come in contact. Like for me, skincare is everything you think, feel, and do, because everything you think, feel, and do either impacts what shows up on your skin or how you feel in it. And we kind of started this conversation with the concept that your skin is a window to your nervous system. I recently presented at the American Academy of Dermatology and to the Association of Psychocutaneous Medicine about stress, trauma, and the skin cancer life cycle. Yeah, we know, and it's not just skin cancer, it's breast cancer, it's all sorts of cancer, that stress, chronic stress, and trauma. So there's a different, like, stress is kind of like it's a natural adaptation, and trauma is when our system is overwhelmed. Our natural ability to adapt is overwhelmed. And so when you look at the research, on our cells, we have these adrenergic receptors. So when our stress response is activated, there's release of cortisol and adrenaline. That adrenaline is binding to receptors on your cells that contribute to tumor formation, progression, metastasis. We also know that cortisol flips on these markers that can kind of turn off and on the signaling, promoting cancer. And this has been shown in squamous cell cancer, melanoma, and basal cell being the most common. So we know that from the inside out, chronic activation of our stress response can play a significant role in the cancer life cycle, which is why the focus of my work is really supporting people through a somatic, a body-based approach of how to regulate this nervous system. How can we, leverage, not all stress is bad. How can we use stress to support us, right? Sympathetic response, that fight or flight. Sympathetic response is also listening to music, going towards, good things as well, sounds in nature, so teaching people how to better regulate their nervous system so that we can shut off some of these patterns that are not supporting our overall health and well-being, including this cancer biology that is driven by constant stress hormones and the inflammatory cascade that follows suit because of it.
Yeah. Thank you for touching on that. It sounds like obviously there's both things at play, everybody, right? There's lots of
it's never just one thing. Exactly.
Never.
You need all the things.
Yeah. Same with food, right? And our relationship with food and our addictive patterns, right? And we want it to just be one thing. Give me the blue pill, right? That fixes everything. And it's just not that simple. So, there's so much more. We'll have to definitely have you back on the show, Keira. This conversation is so fascinating, and I love learning more about skin. And we'll definitely have to keep this conversation going. But I want to be respectful of your time, and everybody listening, of course, I hope you got a lot out of this episode. If people want to come and learn more about what you're doing, Keira, and find more out about you and maybe how they can work with you, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, so admittedly, I'm not as consistent active on social, but Instagram at Dr. Keira Barr, my website, drkeirabarr.com. And there's actually a free quiz that I put together, yourskincarequiz.com, of really asking the question, does your skincare routine need a makeover? And after this conversation, you know that I'm not talking about what serum, cleanser, or toner that you need to use. It's kind of like what in your routine might need an upgrade in terms of how you see yourself, the way you speak about yourself, all of those things. So that's a great resource.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'll make sure all the links are in the show notes below, so you don't have to memorize that, everyone. Just check out the notes below. Thank you so much, Keira, for being here. I've loved this conversation. Do you have any final pieces that you feel you want to share with everybody before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think, as best we can, just tune out the noise. Your skin is an amazing ally, and it's an asset, and it's a source of information and an invitation to get to know yourself better. Right? It's not something to be covered up or fixed. You aren't broken. There's nothing wrong. That would be it. Maybe my goal for everyone is to shift the way we think about our skin and redefine what skincare truly is. Yeah.
And you're doing that. It's so incredible. And I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing and all that I've learned from you today, and will continue to learn from you, Keira. I'm just really, really deeply grateful. And again, everyone watching, I hope that this really resonated with you, and I'm excited for all of you to begin looking at your skin in a different way. Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. If you're loving what we talked about today, please remember to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone you love. And if you're ready to dive deeper into discovering your root causes and patterns that are keeping you hooked on sugar, be sure to check out our brand new free workshop series that will help you kick emotional eating for good. Find the link to download this free series and other amazing resources in the show notes below.